In this lesson, we are going to learn a template that you can use for writing and speaking questions that ask you, do you agree or disagree? This is a very common type of question on the Duolingo English Test, so this template is really going to help you to get a high score. Here are examples of questions for which you could use this template. Some people believe that the arts, music, painting, literature, etc., are as important as science and technology for a society's development. Do you agree or disagree? Provide reasons and examples to support your view. Or, do you agree or disagree with the statement, money can't buy happiness? Explain your opinion with reasons and examples. Finally, agree or disagree with the following statement. People's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. Explain your position. This format in particular, with agree or disagree with the following statement, is very common for the interactive writing question on the DET. That's why this template is so useful. Let's now talk about the basic structure of this template, because it's really quite simple actually. So the basic structure is, first, you are going to state whether you agree or disagree. Then you are going to provide 2 or 3 reasons why you hold that opinion. And that's it. It's really that simple. If this basic structure looks familiar to you, that's because it's the same one that we use in templates that I cover in other videos. So you can see how you can really prepare for the Duolingo English Test very well by learning some fundamental things. Let's now look at this template in more detail, and I will provide you with specific vocabulary that you can use to structure your response. To do this, let's take an example question from the test. This one. Agree or disagree with the following statement. People's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. Explain your position. So first, we need to state whether we agree or disagree. You should do this during the initial time that you are given to plan your response. So depending on the question, it could be 20 or 30 seconds, but it's really important that you use that time to plan your response. And the first thing that you should do when you are planning your response is state your opinion if you are asked for it. So in this case, I agree that people's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. And then I'm going to think of 2 or 3 reasons why I hold that opinion. First, some people grow up in religious cultures, while others grow up in less religious ones. Second, some people grow up in homogeneous places, while others grow up around more diversity. And finally, some people grow up in the city and some people grow up in rural areas. Now, a very common question that I get from a lot of students is, how many supporting reasons do you need? Well, I recommend that you have at least 2. So depending on your target score, as well as how fast you write and speak, maybe you will need 3, maybe you will need 2. In general, if you are aiming to score 130 or above, I would recommend that you aim to use 3 supporting ideas in your responses. If you don't have 3 supporting ideas, then you risk your response being too short. You may lose points, which will make it difficult to score 130 or above. However, if your target score is 110 or 120, then just 2 supporting ideas will be enough. However, if you're a fast typer or a fast speaker, then you may be able to include 3 supporting ideas. The more supporting ideas you can include, the better. It makes your response longer, so you use more vocabulary, and it makes it stronger. Okay, so in general, you want to include as many supporting ideas as you can, but in general, at least 2. So let's talk about how to write your introduction. Your intro should consist of just 2 sentences. Your first sentence can use the following beginnings. 1. I wholeheartedly agree that, or I wholeheartedly disagree that. I strongly agree that, or I strongly disagree that. I concur that. I do not concur that. I agree that, and I disagree that. So the first three options that have the star, those would be the advanced high-scoring versions. They're a bit harder to remember, so if you can't remember any of those, you can always just use I agree or I disagree that. Then your second sentence. Here are your options. There are three primary reasons for which I hold this view. I hold this opinion for three main reasons. I hold this opinion for the following three reasons. So only the first option there I would really consider advanced because it uses the advanced grammar for which. So combining the first and second sentences, here would be our introduction. I wholeheartedly agree that people's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. There are three primary reasons for which I hold this view. This is a very strong introduction. So I very efficiently state my opinion, and then I structure my response for the grader. I make it very clear what I believe, and then I also indicate to them what I'm going to do in the rest of my response. I am going to provide three reasons why I hold that view. Very clear. All right, for the first body paragraph, here are the options that you have for your topic sentence. The primary reason is that. The most notable reason is that. Most significantly. And finally, first. So the first three options are more advanced. If you can't remember any of those, you can always just use first. And here are the example sentences using those templates. The primary reason is that some people grow up in religious cultures while others grow up in less religious ones. The most notable reason is that some people grow up in religious cultures while others grow up in less religious ones. Most significantly, and then the same rest of the sentence, and same with first. So very simple. You can see you just take those options and you put them at the beginning of the sentence. The rest of the sentence will stay the same. It's important to note that most significantly requires a comma after significantly. So don't forget about that. Then, in the rest of your body paragraph, you want to provide an example. This is something I explained in this other video about constructing high-scoring paragraphs, which I would highly recommend watching if you haven't done so already. So here are your options for introducing an example. To demonstrate with an example. An illustrative or illustrative example is that, for example, and for instance. And the full sentences would look like this. To demonstrate with an example, someone who grows up in a place like Utah is more likely to be exposed to religious teachings and principles. An illustrative example is that someone who grows up in a place like Utah is more likely to be exposed to religious teachings and principles. And same with for example and for instance. Like we saw before, you just put the template or the option at the beginning, and then the rest of the sentence is the same. So now we can combine our topic sentence and our sentence to introduce our example to construct the full paragraph, which could look like this. The primary reason is that some people grow up in religious cultures while others grow up in less religious ones. To demonstrate with an example, someone who grows up in a place like Utah is more likely to be exposed to religious teachings and principles. In contrast, someone who grows up in a place where religion is not so important, like San Francisco, likely will not think about God as much. This can result in quite two different worldviews and life philosophies. Before we look at how to construct your second body paragraph, I wanted to take a moment to let you know about Arno. In Arno, you get unlimited practice questions for every question type on the Duolingo English Test for free. And if you upgrade to one of our paid plans, then you can take advantage of our advanced features like instant AI scoring and feedback that shows you exactly where you can improve your grammar and vocabulary to raise your score. We also have a free, powerful vocabulary builder. We have premium lessons. We have full mock tests with detailed feedback on all of your responses. Your first mock test is completely free. So to check out all that we have built to help you get ready for the Duolingo English Test, just head over to goarno.io and create your free account. Okay, let's get back to the rest of the lesson. To construct your second body paragraph, you will need to start with a topic sentence as always, and here are the options available to you. The second reason is that, another notable reason is that, second most significantly, and second. And then the full example sentences. The second reason is that some people grow up in homogeneous places while others grow up around more diversity. So homogeneous means where things are the same. It's the opposite of diverse. Then another notable reason is that some people grow up in homogeneous places while others grow up around more diversity, and so on and so forth for the third and fourth options. Then we can combine this topic sentence with the vocabulary we already looked at to introduce an example to construct our second body paragraph. Here would be the full paragraph. Another notable reason is that some people grow up in homogeneous places while others grow up around more diversity. An illustrative example is that I grew up in a small town where everyone was similar, but a close friend grew up in New York City. My friend had classmates from around the world and was familiar with many different cultures, whereas I only learned about these things later in life when I started traveling. So as I talked about at the beginning of the video, this is already a high scoring response. I state my opinion, I provide two supporting ideas. This would be enough to get a great score on the test. However, depending on how quickly you type or speak, you may have time to add a third idea, which if you can, you should. So let's look at how to add a third body paragraph. For the topic sentence, here are the options. The third reason is that, yet another notable reason is that, or finally, or third. And then the full sentences like we've seen before, you simply take those options, you put them at the beginning, and then everything else that comes after is the same. So, for example, the third reason is that some people grow up in the city and some people grow up in rural areas. Then I can combine that with the vocabulary we already looked at to introduce examples to construct my third body paragraph. The third reason is that some people grow up in the city and some people grow up in rural areas. For example, I grew up in a small town in the country. We spent a lot of time playing in the forest and swimming in rivers. Many of my friends who grew up in cities did not share the same connection with nature when they were young. And finally, the conclusion. Many students think that they really need a conclusion to get a high score, but you do not. Okay? So I will say this very clearly. You do not need a conclusion in your response. I know this because I've taken the DET twice. I got a perfect score both times, and I did not use a conclusion in my responses. If you include a conclusion, you should be sure that it restates your main point, right? Your opinion. That is what the conclusion should do first and foremost. However, you need to use new vocabulary to restate your opinion in order for your conclusion to gain you points. If you simply repeat exactly what you've already said previously in your response, your conclusion isn't going to gain you many points, if any. If you don't have the vocabulary to restate your main point with new words, you should save your time to proofread your response instead. So for most students, you will gain more points by saving time to proofread your response instead of writing a conclusion. This is because as we are typing, especially when we have the pressure of a timer, we are going to make mistakes. And if you don't save time to proofread, your response is going to have many easy to fix grammar and spelling mistakes and missing words that will lose you a lot of points. So saving 30 seconds to a minute to proofread your response is going to be the best thing that you can do to gain points for your response on the test. I know it's hard because questions on the DET are very quick, but really if you can save time to proofread, it will help you so much. But let's say that you have the time, you've already proofread, and you really want to have a conclusion, then here is what you can do. In sum, for the reasons provided above. To sum up, for the reasons provided above. In conclusion, for the reasons provided above. And to conclude, for the reasons provided above. So let's now talk about what is a good conclusion and what would be a bad conclusion. Here's a bad conclusion for our response that we've been creating in this video. In sum, for the reasons provided above, I strongly agree that people's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. The reason this is not a good conclusion is that it repeats exactly what I said in the introduction. So I said in the introduction that I strongly agree that people's experiences can be different based on where they grow up. So I don't want to repeat myself exactly. I need to use different words. For example, I can simply find certain words and replace them with synonyms, like this. In sum, for the reasons provided above, I strongly agree that people's experiences can vary instead of be different based on where they are raised instead of grow up. So that would be an easy solution, but it would be better if I changed even more. For example, in sum, for the reasons provided above, I strongly agree that where someone grows up greatly impacts the experiences they have in life. That would be a very strong conclusion that would gain me points because it's using different vocabulary and different sentence structures than I've used in the rest of my response. And here would be our full response with that conclusion. Now, if you're looking at this, you may be saying, but teacher, that response is so long. I can't write that much. The first thing is that response would probably be more suitable for a speaking question because we speak faster than we write generally. Our speaking responses will be longer than our writing responses. So, for a speaking response, this is quite reasonable, especially if you are aiming to score 130 or above. However, if you are a fast typer, you could type this much and you would score super, super high for something like the writing sample or interactive writing. But if you want to shorten your response, then you can just have 2 body paragraphs and no conclusion. So this is what I mean. We can eliminate that third body paragraph and we can eliminate the conclusion. And now we have our introduction and we have our 2 reasons with an example. And this is still a very strong response. This is definitely strong enough to score 130 and above. Okay, but the important thing to remember is I would really encourage you to have a strong introduction and then to have at least 2 supporting reasons with an example. If you have less than that, like I said before, it's going to be hard to score 130 or above. But if your target score is less than 130 or above, then you may be able to use just 1 supporting idea. So this would be the full shortened response. All right, we just covered a ton of stuff, so let's do a quick recap. Also, there's a PDF download for the most important information in this lesson, so you can download that and then refer to it as you are preparing for the test to help you really master all the material that we've covered here today. Here's the recap. 1. Start by clearly stating whether you agree or disagree. 2. Provide 2 or 3 reasons why you hold that opinion. And then, in each of those body paragraphs in which you are explaining those reasons, you want to use a strong topic sentence. You want to use connecting words at the beginning. You want to include an example or some kind of evidence to support your claim. And you want to make sure that you have a clear connection between your reason and the question or your main argument. And then finally, you can optionally add a conclusion that uses new words to express your main point or your opinion. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe. That way we know that we should keep making more lessons like it. From here, I would highly recommend that you check out our other lesson on how to construct high-scoring paragraphs. That's really essential knowledge for the test to make sure that you can get a high score. I will see you over in that lesson.